Have you ever trusted a padlock you shouldn't have? I had that assumption for years. I think most people do, and I think most people come to it the same way I did. Nobody teaches it explicitly. The interface just trains you. You see the HTTPS and the lock icon in the address bar, and something in your nervous system relaxes and goes, okay, this is real, someone checked, this is legitimate. And for a while, that shortcut wasn't completely wrong. It was just incomplete in a way nobody pointed out. The padlock proves one specific thing. The connection between your browser and that server is encrypted while the data is in motion. That's it. It says nothing about whether the person running that server is honest. It says nothing about whether the page you're looking at is actually the one you meant to visit. It has nothing to say about what happens to your data the moment it arrives on the other end. A phishing page can have a padlock. In fact, a significant number of them do. So the question I kept coming back to, once I actually looked into this, was, if the padlock doesn't mean trust, what does it actually mean? I want to name what's happening here because naming it makes it easier to hold on to. I call this the padlock illusion. The padlock illusion is when private transport gets confused for safe destination. Think about what a sealed armored van actually guarantees. It protects what's inside while it's moving. Nobody intercepts the package in transit, nobody tampers with the contents on the way, the cargo arrives exactly as it was loaded. That's real, meaningful protection. But the van still goes wherever the driver was told to go. And if someone gave the driver the wrong address, the van arrives perfectly sealed at the wrong building. The contents are intact. The destination is the problem. That's the distinction HTTPS actually makes. It protects the road. It does not certify the building at the end of it. The reason attackers don't try to break modern encryption is precisely this. They don't need to. They build a convincing fake destination, get a valid certificate for it, which costs nothing and takes minutes now that issuance is largely automated, and they wait for traffic to arrive. The lock appears. The page looks right. The credentials go in. Encryption is not identity. The padlock was never a character reference for the site behind it, but that's only the misunderstanding half. The other half is worth understanding on its own terms, because once you see exactly what HTTPS does, you can see precisely where its job ends. When your browser connects to a site over HTTPS, the first thing that happens, before any actual data moves, is that your browser and the server negotiate a shared encryption key. They establish a secure session. From that point on, the packets traveling between you and that server are scrambled in a way that makes it extremely difficult for anyone sitting on the same network to read your traffic as plain text. That's the confidentiality piece. Alongside that, HTTPS includes an integrity layer. It's much harder for someone positioned in the middle to quietly modify what you're receiving without the tampering being detectable. And the browser validates that the certificate being presented actually maps to the domain you requested and traces back to a recognized authority. That's a real set of protections, and it matters. Before HTTPS was widespread, using the web on a shared network was genuinely dangerous in ways most people didn't appreciate at the time. Coffee shop Wi-Fi, hotel networks, airport lounges, all of that is meaningfully safer now because of what HTTPS does. But read through that list and notice what's not there. There's no step that says anything about the character of the business on the other end. No step that says whether this page is a clone of somewhere else. Nothing that touches what happens to your data once it lands safely on the other side of that encrypted tunnel. The tunnel can be perfectly sealed while the destination is wrong, and the lock will still show. So if the mental model is padlock equals safe site, that model needs an update. But here's where it gets useful, because if we take the single icon model away, we need something to replace it with. And this is how I think about it now. I call it the trust stack. 5 layers. If any of them fails, you stop before you enter anything. Layer 1 is the padlock, HTTPS. You still check for it, but you understand it now as the floor, not the ceiling. Minimum hygiene, not a clean bill of health. Layer 2 is the domain. The actual URL, read in full, and read carefully. Not just the brand name somewhere in the string. The whole thing. A URL like PayPal secure login.example.com is not PayPal, even though the word PayPal is sitting right there in it. And there's a subtler version. Attackers sometimes swap out letters for near-identical lookalikes. A capital I in place of a lowercase l, for example, or a 0 in place of the letter O. So a domain can pass a quick glance and still be pointing somewhere completely different. You have to actually read it character by character, not just pattern match the brand name. Layer 3 is context. Why are you on this page right now? Did you navigate here yourself, or did a message bring you here? Most phishing doesn't succeed because the fake page is especially convincing. It succeeds because the message created urgency, urgency compressed the decision window, and verification got skipped. Recognizing that mechanism is most of the defense. Layer 4 is the request type. What specifically is this page asking you to submit? A password? A one-time code? Card details? A recovery phrase? Does that match how the real service normally behaves? If something feels off about the flow, that instinct is usually worth following. Layer 5 is consequence. If you hand this over and you're wrong, what can actually happen? The higher the potential damage, the slower and more deliberate the verification has to be. One icon was compressing all 5 of those layers into a single symbol, and it was only ever answering the first question. That's the actual shift. Use the stack, not the symbol. The reason the padlock illusion is so persistent isn't that people are careless. It's that the interface genuinely taught them this. And for a while, that teaching mostly held up. There was a period, early widespread HTTPS adoption, early Chrome and Firefox security UIs, where the visual signal was more substantive. Browsers used to display the full company name in a green bar next to the padlock if a site held an extended validation certificate. That meant a human had done real, documented verification of who actually owned the domain. The green bar with a legal entity name was something you could wait. Those bars are gone now. Browsers quietly removed them, partly because research showed users weren't actually reading them, partly because the UX was getting crowded. What remains is the padlock alone, a smaller signal carrying the same assumed authority that a more rigorous verification system used to carry. Meanwhile, on the attacker side, the friction dropped out. Getting a certificate, the thing that produces the padlock, became free and largely automated in 2016 when Let's Encrypt launched. Before that, there was at least some overhead involved. After a fake page could get a valid certificate in minutes with no meaningful check on who actually owned the site behind it. The visual signal stayed simple. The threat model got more sophisticated. That gap between where the interface is and where the risk actually lives, well, that's been widening ever since. And that's where phishing money is made. Most videos about this end with awareness, and awareness is genuinely useful. But it doesn't do much for you at 11 p.m. when you're tired and an email has just told you your account will be locked in 30 minutes unless you verify now. What actually helps in that moment is a habit, something automatic that runs before your hands do. I use what I think of as the 20-second trust check, 5 steps that take less time than they sound. 1. Stop. 2. Deliberate breaths. This isn't optional. It interrupts the urgency loop the message was engineered to create. 2. Read the full domain, character by character. Not a glance. Actually read it. 3. Ask yourself, did I go looking for this page, or did a message send me here? 4. If a message sent you here, open a fresh browser tab and type the address yourself from memory. 5. Continue only if where you land manually matches what the original message was pointing at. Phishing doesn't usually win because the fake page is especially sophisticated. It wins because the message arrived at the right moment and moved you faster than your verification process could run. The attack is mostly temporal. It compresses your decision window until checking feels impossible. The 20-second pause doesn't make you more technically capable. It just gives your actual judgment the space to run. You don't need to approach the internet with paranoia. That's not what any of this is asking for. If this kind of breakdown is useful, actually understanding how the thing works rather than just how it looks, there are more of these in the pipeline. The series is Tech Behind the Tech. Same approach every time. No fear bait, no fake hacks, just what's actually running underneath what you see on screen. If that's the channel you've been looking for, subscribe. And if you want me to do the VPN one next, what it actually hides, and what it was never designed to protect, let me know in the comments. The padlock is not a lie. It's a partial answer to a question that needed 5 parts. It got promoted to a complete trust signal because interfaces need to be simple, and because for a long time it worked often enough that nobody corrected the assumption. Now the threat model has moved, and most people's mental model hasn't, and that gap is where real damage happens to real people. You can still use the padlock as a check. It's still the floor, but now you know it's the floor, not the ceiling, and you have 4 more questions to run through before anything sensitive leaves your hands. That's a different kind of control than the lock icon ever gave you. Have you ever trusted a padlock you shouldn't have?